And as Ed Norton said, you're on the air.
You're on the air. Yes.
It's a Friday, Mr. Rayo.
Friday. It's the end of the week.
It is.
And
I'm going to bring the chat on my computer, on my phone here, so I can monitor what everybody is saying.
And a real touch of winter today with the cold temperatures and the blustery winds and wind chills in the 20s to near 30, and a hard freeze on tap for a good part of our viewing region tonight. In fact, freeze advisories or freeze warnings are in effect for New York City proper.
Well, they're apparently one of the only spots left in our zone anyway,
where the growing season will come to an abrupt end tonight.
Right, although there's not a whole lot of room to grow. Well, you know, people do.
Yeah.
In their yards, in their small yards, they harvest whole tomato crops.
Oh yeah,
in the summer and fall.
Well, my wife has
grapes and everything else.
My wife has like 5 or 6 big pots that she puts out right up against the wall of our house, and she puts them there because when we lived in Long Island, we used to have a garden, and she used to grow all kinds of stuff, kohlrabi and tomatoes and zucchini and whatever. But you can't do that where I live. At least you can't put it out in the open because all kinds of creatures will get to it.
Raccoon, you get the deer and everything else.
The deer, the raccoon, the fox, the possum, and whatever. So we put them up against the side of the house. With a lot of these critters don't, have the gumption to venture too close to the house.
Right.
But it was only in the last week. I think I mentioned it a few nights ago that she threw out a whole tomato bush of cherry tomatoes. They were all green. They were all out, but they were all green. She said, "We're not going to have the weather to allow."
Well, and I said, what about fried green tomatoes?
Yeah.
You could have done that.
Well, anyway, it's over. Now comes the dregs of winter. For all of you who enjoy this time of the year, this gave you a preview today of cold and blustery winds. And at least tomorrow it'll be just as cold, but it will not be as windy, so it'll be not as harsh. And then a nice jump in the temperature to around or above 50 when we get to Sunday.
I can't seem to pull the chat up for some reason. Let me try this again. Hold on.
But we know you're chatting already.
No, I know I am. I'm just trying. I want to get the chat on my phone so I can see whatever. Oh, here we go. I couldn't get my YouTube app to open up, so I finally did. Okay. Hey, you know what you can do? Address this. And I'm not trying to shame anybody. I will not out you. I'm just going to bring this point up. Now, we know that, snow lovers are sensitive types. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Yeah.
So, they try to find every angle they can work. And today being November the 8th, I saw my first Winter is Over post.
Okay.
And it's based on the fact that the system that we just had yesterday and last night that went through the way it did with basically an Arctic front with a wave,
right.
Is going to rhyme with what we're going to get on Tuesday, which now looks like it's going to be an Arctic front with a wave, and that the wave goes by before the cold air gets in. Maybe it changes at the end, maybe it doesn't. But just looking at those two particular tracks, the conclusion was reached that winter is over. So I want you to we're going to do this in a nice way. So address that issue if you would.
I will just we see this every single winter or every single fall leading into the winter, where people already start throwing in the towels. And I can remember, what was that, winter 2-3 years ago, where they were throwing the towels in February, or as February was approaching, and all of a sudden, boom, the huge turnaround.
The Four-Easter year.
The Four-Easter year, yes.
But there's actually, the way it usually works with social media is like this. From August, September, October, and into November, we get the posts of this will be an epic winter, the winter to end all winters.
Right.
As soon as December 1st rolls around, you get the winter's over posts.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Then what happens is that in January and February, you usually get winter,
mm-hmm.
right? And then, of course, comes March, where you wind up with, at least lately, although it didn't really happen too much last year, but in years before that, where we had these long extensions that it seemed like it lasted through March and April. Look, the bottom line is, You cannot get. I would not be able to, even if it winds up being the case, it would be a lucky coincidence or an unlucky coincidence. You can't really get very much out of what's happening now and take it out for the next 5 months. It's way too long a time frame.
Right.
And bear in mind that what we're seeing right now is probably on about, if you want to look at the one extreme to the other, in terms of extreme warmth and extreme cold, we've got the rubber band stretched pretty far in the extreme cold direction, because we're talking about temperatures right now that are running 15 or more degrees below average.
Oh, you see these gigantic high-pressure systems building down through the plain states in Western Canada. You don't expect to see that until like January or February.
No, and you're going to reflexively bounce off those temperatures.
Right.
And the other thing I would just point out is that if there were if it were the case that November was normally a snowy month, we could have a different conversation. If you look at past records, November, even if you go up into central and northern New England and into upstate New York around the lakes, in spite of what folklore will tell you, things usually really don't get going until the latter part of November or even the beginning of December anyway.
Right.
So you're not, if we got snow now, it would be an anomaly.
Our chief meteorologist here, Brian Fitzgerald, sent us a JPEG image this morning where his backyard was coated with a very, very light coating of snow. But we must point out also that Monsieur Fitzgerald also lives in Dutchess County at an altitude of about 1,000 feet.
I think he might even be like 1,300 feet.
1,300 or something like that. So it's not out of the question that you can see snow this early at such a location. But for most of the rest of us, it doesn't look like it's going to happen for a while. Again, Tuesday of next week looks like, as we just saw yesterday, a situation where it looks like it's going to go from rain, possibly mixed with or change or end as some wet snow, and then that's out, and then it turns cold again later on in the week next week.
By the way, we usually say it at the top. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Joe Chaffee. If you've got a Gmail account, be sure to hit the subscribe button, and welcome to those who have. A number of you, new people joined on this week, and of course, we've been doing the Joe and Joe weather show every day this week because we only have one more week here together.
To be together.
Right. After that, we're going to do you and I are going to be doing some Skyping.
Right.
In and out. So we'll do it that way. Anyway, I'm losing my train of thought here. It's been a long
really
week.
Not much to say. I mean, this weekend, some high clouds veiling the sun tomorrow, but that'll be the atmosphere's reaction to the warm-up that will occur on Sunday. And always, when a warm-up comes our way, the first area of the atmosphere that gets the warmer air is in the higher levels. In this case, that'll touch off some high clouds tomorrow. More of a cloud cover tomorrow night, but again, that's simply the atmosphere getting ready to turn itself over from rather cold to seasonably mild.
Right, and I have that. I got a couple of loops. You can just see the. I pulled up the loop from where we could see most of Canada, so you can actually see the the ridging that's out in the west and the flow of the clouds running from southwest Canada, and of course that's where the next system is going to be coming in. Looks like those high clouds moving across Wisconsin, Minnesota, there, Illinois. You've got a little bit that's running ahead now into the Ohio valleys. Of course, as you said, will veil the sun tomorrow. One of the things I noticed, Joe, I don't know, in terms of temperatures, as far as where we're going to be bouncing to, coming off these extreme lows, we're actually average high, I believe, in New York City. I checked today and I double-checked. In New York City, the average high on this date is 57, and in Philadelphia, it's 59.
Right.
So even with this bounce going into the next front, which will approach on Monday night, early Tuesday, we may maybe get back to near average on Monday.
Right.
Even Sunday in the bounce will take us to the upper 40s or low 50s. So from the standpoint of warm-ups, put that in quotations, it's a nice bounce, but it's only going to take us back to the flat line.
Right. By the way, I love this loop that has been running because you can actually see the zone of where sun is shining and where the sun is not shining. That line, the terminator between light and dark, now reaches only up to about central Hudson Bay. And I
Right.
suppose anywhere north of there, it's in the dark now because of the time of the year, the seasonal time of the year. Or maybe I'm not. Maybe it's not exactly true. I still think that the sun is above the horizon, further north, but it just doesn't show up as well because the sun is such a low altitude at those northern climes up in central and northern.
Well,
Canada.
I pulled up the satellite from Alaska. I'm going to pull it up again because I was trying to figure out what I was looking at. And Alfred from Wainwright, Alaska, is on here. You haven't seen him in a few days. Your days of sun, Alfred Phillips, must be dwindling to a precious few. He's 11, and he's in Wainwright, Alaska, which is right on the north slope, kind of like where Barrow is on the north slope. Well, he's there too, in Wainwright. 11 above, wind chill -5, hardly any snow, just cold weather. The Chukchi Sea Ocean never freezes. It didn't freeze yet. It's too warm.
Mm-hmm.
But before I switch, I just want to point out, if you look on the lower left, that's a pretty good shot there of the low clouds when you go from night to daytime off of Southern California.
the marine layer.
The marine layer, how it just kind of it hugs the coastline exactly,
Right.
and runs its way up northward. But let me switch to that Alaska shot because I was trying to figure out what and you may have the answer here, but take a look at this. I don't know if it's because it's where it is in the angle from the satellite, but why? What is that? You see your clouds kind of layered there off in the Gulf of Alaska. There's a a fairly decent vortex there south of the Aleutians, which is driving that deep trough that's down along 160 degrees west. But you see what I'm talking about? Why does it look like there's clouds up that way?
Beyond the the lip of the horizon.
Isn't that weird?
That is kind of weird. Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Well, it's maybe it's sea fog. That's a good question.
You know what? I'll ask. I'll ask one of the guys, my buddy at the Weather
Actually, we're looking
Service.
over towards Siberia, right? Aren't we?
Yeah, but I get or the angle of the shot or whatever it is. It just looks really strange. Well, up here you're looking at over the north, over the
Right.
Arctic Ocean,
Right.
toward the North Pole.
Right.
I guess maybe the illusion, that it's actually is what you're looking at is actually flat, but it kind of gives you. The illusion here is that those clouds are actually over the top.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
when in reality it's like
Just-
it's kind of going like this.
Right. Just over, or just above the north slope.
Okay,
of
good. I
Alaska.
feel better now because then otherwise the flat earthers will be just like all over they would be all over this.
Yes.
Here's the U.S. loop tonight. A lot of dry air though. We got clear skies, for the most part, other than the high clouds that are rolling eastward, but for the most part, it's dry conditions throughout much of the country. We have no real major storms here that we're dealing with.
In fact, I saw on the convective outlook from Norman, Oklahoma, they put out a 3-day convective outlook for thunderstorms, and on day 3, that would be Sunday, they had the message right across the entire United States: no thunderstorm activity expected. No thunderstorm activity forecast.
Oh, okay.
And there you go. Right?
No, that's a no severe. There it is.
No thunderstorms forecast.
No thunderstorms
Nothing.
forecast.
Nothing.
So if Daniel McLean is on from Youngstown, Ohio, he's been
very upset.
been very upset by a number of things. Although he did get all A's on his report card, which was a good thing. So we want to congratulate him for that. I don't know if he's on. He was on earlier. If he may or may not still be on. But congratulations on all the A's. So let's roll along and see where we're going on this Friday night. And I don't need to do that. So we got SPC. Folks, you can see on the radar it's pretty quiet. You got some showers tonight across northern and central Florida and along the immediate Gulf Coast. Otherwise, there really isn't too much happening. A little action. You had some lake effect action today, Joe. I noticed. I had some flurries. You had some flurries.
We had a couple of flurries in Putnam Valley, but there may have been Long Island sound effect flurries blowing across from Connecticut across Long Island Sound and causing some flurry activity in parts of Long Island. I don't know if you.
Yeah, no, we had some.
Yeah.
It's funny when we get that Long Island sound effect. It's very if you're, it's really weird because it does look. You can see above the cloud tops,
Right.
and it's almost looks like a fog that comes in. It's like this wall of snow showers, and
Right.
I've seen them come in over the years under the right circumstances. They have left in small localities a quick couple of inches.
Wow.
It's rare.
Right.
It's rare. You have to have an absolutely perfect setup with an Arctic air mass and a north wind, which is kind of what we had today for the time of year. But it comes in almost looks like a big summertime shower, and you see this wall,
Right.
and it puts it down and it goes right out. So
They sometimes get that on Cape Cod, the Bay,
Yeah.
the Massachusetts Bay effect, as it's sometimes called.
All right, so on we go. I thought I'd bring the upper air first because this is sort of a wash, rinse, repeat scenario. As this trough lifts out, the next one drops in, and though I don't really see anything too much different. If you look at what happened just yesterday, you had this trough that kind of swung down and then moved on through. Maybe the one difference with this one is that perhaps it looks a little bit stronger, and that's probably reflecting the colder high that's coming down, which I think is going to have a much bigger impact
Right.
in terms of temperatures. But with the upper low so far to the north like that, it's you're not going to get. It's hard to get a wave to form in the right spot. You've got to get a situation where you get the cold air to come into the east first, to come back into the east because it's going out.
Right.
Running. Here's our high for today, which is sitting in Indiana. This evening. By tomorrow morning, it's moving across Virginia, and then by tomorrow afternoon, it's just east of Long Island and near Cape Cod, and going out. Your cold air, you're losing it. So you have to replace it. And here's your Arctic boundary that's coming down for Monday. And you kind of look at this. If you just looked at the surface and nothing else, Joe, you might look at this and say, well, you know what, this looks like it's trying to kind of push through, and maybe more of the high goes to the east rather than going, more to the south. But it doesn't. That's not going to be the case because here's your upper trough is swinging around now. A wave develops. You see where the wave is come Monday evening. So the Arctic boundary actually kind of buckles back northward a little bit ahead of that low, bit of a warm front. And my guess is that the only thing I'll say, Joe, this time around, I think there's a fair chance that you could wind up seeing more snow out of this on the northwest side in parts of the Ohio Valley, through western PA, upstate New York, and into central and northern New England. And maybe, just maybe, we'll see a change over to snow right before it ends in some places. But again, it's going to be another one of these instances where the precip's going to shut off,
Right.
and be done. I mean, how much could you get out of it?
Right. Looks a lot more. It looks more robust than what we just went through, but again, maybe not quite enough robust to get the snow lovers really happy. Maybe, as you say, a cheap thrill coming for Tuesday, but that's about all.
And that, yeah, exactly. And then here comes our big high. Now, it's not often that you see a thickness value, Joe, here of close to 516, 510 by Wednesday morning. Look at the gradient here. I mean, it's gonna be windy later Tuesday night when this cold air comes down. It's
Right.
gonna be cold.
I think it's going to be more prolonged, the winds, that is, as opposed to what we have just seen. We had a windy day today, but tomorrow, or actually later tonight and tomorrow, the winds are going to be almost non-existent. This time around, coming our way for, I think it may be rather windy on Monday and into Tuesday, and well, maybe not necessarily Monday, but for Tuesday into Wednesday. So this may be a longer lasting period of windy conditions for us.
I agree. The 32-degree line, for those of you who live down south, gets down to the Gulf Coast here and into southern Georgia. I'm not sure why it does that little jump up there. That might be some sort of topography issue. It's pretty flat down here in this part of
Right.
South Georgia
Right.
and elevated as you get up into North Georgia. But there's your 32-degree line, and you're talking about temperatures in the 20s. This is at 8 o'clock Wednesday. I'm sorry, 7 o'clock Wednesday morning. The 25-degree line is cutting across northern Mississippi, Alabama, northern Georgia, and then through New Jersey and over Long Island. That might actually be, I think it might be a little bit colder than that. The 20-degree line is just barely to the north of it, and I just ran over the 15-degree line. The gradient is so tight here.
Right.
And again, just to put it in perspective, we're talking about an air mass. When you look at the temperature anomaly, I mean, that's, except for Central and South Florida, that's a large area of mega below average. You got all that brighter purple. That's 15 degrees or more
Right.
Below normal, and that's in degrees Celsius, by the way.
And the places that, let's say later in the weekend and Monday that are going to be so frigid, take a look how the big warm-up is going to take place in places across the western United States, into the Rockies, into the western edge of the Great Plains. A big warm-up. I guess that's what they call the Chinook effect in Montana and Wyoming. But there will be a dramatic warm-up out there as the temperatures, hit bottom or fall rapidly downward here in the east in the middle and latter part of next week.
All right, so let's run through the maps real quick, because then we can go to the chat and chat with everybody. It's a Friday night. So after this cold air pulls out, then it looks to me, Joe, I was looking at the upper air. I think, judging from the teleconnections from last night's run, this is all being driven by the very strongly negative EPO, which is what we have right now. But that trends toward the neutral line. It actually goes a little bit positive. So it certainly suggests that the pattern is going to relax a little bit. The Pacific Ridge, the PNA, Pacific North America pattern, the PNA Ridge is very strong. The NAO is, as I've been saying over and over again, that's probably the one that's looked at the most and should probably be looked at the least. But that kind of trends down to the neutral line. I have read a few things in the last few days, Joe, suggesting that a few people are that look at this, look at the long range pattern are talking about the NAO going negative, maybe in a big way toward the end of November and going into December. I would just say that's all fine and dandy, but the last 5 or 6 winters, the NAO has been not only virtually non-existent, it has appeared from time to time, but in terms of hanging around for weeks and weeks on end, we just haven't seen that. You have to go back almost to 2010, I think maybe it was the last time that's happened. But models love to bring that blocking up there, and then most often than not, it never materializes. So just let's be cautious.
Well, I will tell you that the 3 to 4 week experimental temperature and precipitation probability prog, which is put out by the Climate Prediction Center, taking us into early December, has much of the eastern part of the country in below normal temperatures.
Right.
So they continue.
So they're playing persistence. I thought looking at the upper air, it relaxes. It doesn't really lose the overall look to it. It looks like there's more ridging in the west and more troughing in the east over time. It's not like it's dropping a wholesale trough down in the west and bringing the southeast ridge all the way up the coast. So perhaps what we're seeing is chess pieces that have to move around a little bit in the longer term, and while that's happening, we'll trend closer to average over the next week to week and a half after we get through this coming week. Let me just say thanks to a couple of people tonight. So Doug Wetzel hitting the super chat, hitting super chat tonight. Thank you very much. And I think I saw a couple of others. I just want to give him a thank you. John Trabacchino, thanks very much for hitting, and Jason Barry, thanks for hitting super chat tonight. Brandon Doherty wanted to know, because we use. I've been saying the word retirement, and I guess no one's. Guys, listen, I'm retiring in a sense. I'm just not doing TV. I'm probably not going to do TV anymore. I'm going to be doing everything I'm still doing and everything I'm doing online and the YouTube channel and everything else. I'm not only not going away, I'm probably going to be doing more. It's just that I won't be doing it for somebody else, okay? That's all. I've been working in TV now since 1979. And except for a brief interruption, it's been pretty much straight through. So that's 40 plus years of my life, and I'm just kind of taking it in a slightly different direction. But I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be here, okay? You just won't be able to put me on the big box.
What about your occasional appearances on Pix? Has that come to an end, or?
My guess is it probably has. And that might be a conversation for another day.
Okay.
But you're not retiring either. You're doing stuff as well.
Well, I'm doing a lot of, as far as television is concerned, it looks like, at least for the moment, come next week, I'll be done with that. I am going to be looking into doing some teaching, perhaps, as an adjunct in one of the local colleges. We mentioned this last night. I haven't approached any yet, but it looks like now I will be doing that, maybe after taking a short time off after we're both done here next Friday, and we'll see where that ends up. I also do freelance writing. I've written a couple of children's books for Simon & Schuster. I may write another one for them if they're interested, and freelance writing, magazines, and online articles. So it for me, like Joe, you may not see much, if any, of my appearances on television beyond next Friday, and we'll just play it by ear and see how things go.
MZ Safler, right? Yeah. After I said it, I realized that you can have your YouTube on your regular TV, because I have it on mine with Apple TV. It's up there as one of the options, so you actually can watch us on the big screen. Mm-hmm. And thanks, Javon. Appreciate it. Hitting super chat. Thank you so much. Let's see. So you're not, like you said, you're not retiring either. And you know what? You never know what happens down the road. I thought I never. There was this point. There was a time where I thought I was never going to work on TV again, and lo and behold, I got hired here at FiOS One News.
Well, like you said, you never know. But at this particular, it's not like let me just put it this way: it's not like I have not made the attempt at other locations, other television stations. I have knocked on doors, and unfortunately, in a lot of cases, nobody answers the door. That's pretty much the story. And part of it is, I think, due to the fact that you and I, for example, have been in this business for a very long time, mm-hmm. and TV now is just simply not a young man, not an old man's
no, it's not.
Game anymore. It's you see a lot of young faces, and I guess for us that doesn't work anymore.
Scott Briller, the chairman, thanks for hitting super chat tonight, and he says, "Stay tuned next Friday for special announcement from moderators." All right.
From moderators?
Well, I have some of the guys, some of our audience are also moderators on the YouTube channel. So that, let's say, for example, that some sort of person appears on the chat and starts saying nasty things. They have the ability to eliminate them and eliminate the conversation.
We're going to eliminate you as the moderator.
Right. They can actually even put people in timeout.
Uh-huh.
Okay, like they do with kids. Okay. So those are the moderators. And
it's a special announcement.
Johnny Quest is a moderator, okay. and Scott is a moderator. So there's a few people on here that do that. So I guess we'll just have to wait until next. Next Friday.
I'll say one other thing that I have spoken.
That means we both have to come in.
Well, I guess so. I've spoken to several chief meteorologists at several of the local television stations in the New York area.
Right.
And they all indicated that they were interested in having me come on board. However, they were what's the word I'm looking for?
Overruled.
Overruled by somebody who was higher up on the food chain, or maybe the corporate end of things, that would prefer going in a different direction. So there you go.
It's the way it is the world we live in.
It is the world we live in. It is what it is.
Erica, I know you mentioned. I'm sorry, I saw it before, and it. You mentioned a certain meteorologist down in Oklahoma I don't recognize the name. I'm trying to find your post here so I can get the name from it. Oh, Travis Meyer. That name, actually, I'm sorry, that name does ring a bit of a bell, but I don't, I can't put my finger on it at the moment. Of course, it's the minute that we go off the air, I might remember something. Okay, so you got a few of you guys mentioning Roku. You saw MZ Saflorite says you saw me this past Sunday on Samsung with YouTube, right? Because you bring YouTube up on the full screen. I think I'm going to find out after next week. One of the things that's constrained me, and I know some folks might find that hard to believe, considering all the stuff that I do with websites, my two apps, and everything else. That I use the word constrained. And I use it because I spend 3 hours of my day in the car. So that's 3 hours I can't be doing, extra stuff. And plus, I'm working for somebody else. Right. So that time, I can't be doing all of this every waking minute. But I'm going to have a lot more time to get into a lot of things that I've been thinking of doing and trying, and some of it's going to fail and some of it's going to succeed. Everybody's going to be around to watch me throw things against the wall to see if it sticks. John Tragbacchino is going back in time, and he remembers when Spencer Christian was on Channel 7 in New York, as do I.
That's like in the late 70s, early 80s. Spencer Christian was there at ABC 7 at the same time that Storm Field was at ABC 7. And I think, we were talking about last night, I was thinking about this, Ira Joe Fisher, I think you're probably right. He worked for all three channels, 2, 4, and 7 at one time, one place or whatever.
He might be one of the few in this market that actually did work at all three.
Yeah.
And that was at a time, I think he was at 7 first and then went over to 7 to 2 to 4. I think that's how it worked.
I think it was, with Dr. Frank Field, it was 4, 2, 5, and 9. Because 5 and 9 are both now interchanged. Donna
Levasseur. I actually know Tom Skilling's work. I've never met Tom, but when I was back working in New Orleans in 1986, 1983 to 1986, my colleague Bob Breck, who was chief meteorologist at WVUE in New Orleans, grew up in Chicago. So we used to watch Skilling every night, and Skilling at the time was, that was at the infancy of television graphics, and a lot of the non-New York markets, New York City markets, already had far more elaborate graphic systems than the New York City markets had.
Right.
Oddly enough, the top 5 markets, especially New York and LA, when it comes to weather, they were probably the last ones to go the weather graphics.
They were still using the big plexiglass maps.
Right, and the magnetic maps and that kind of thing. So I got to see Skilling. We used to watch him every night. Mike Kaplan, I know the name, but I don't know him personally, but I have heard his name bandied about.
Tom Skilling, the only time I did get a look at him or a view at him, his station had sent Tom Skilling down to southern Illinois for the solar eclipse in August of 2017. He had never seen a total eclipse of the sun, always said that he always wanted to see one, saw it, and right after the eclipse was coming to an end, he started to cry. That was how emotional he was in seeing the eclipse. It was a very emotional thing for him. And an eclipse can do that to you when you see it for the first time.
Now you want to know how perceptive our audience is, okay? Are you ready?
Yeah.
So Reaver 501 is your tie. Oh. Constellations. He noticed it.
Okay. Yeah. My wife actually. I've had this tie for a long time, but I never had the gumption to put it on. And finally today, literally, as I was going to wear a solid blue tie, and my wife looked into the drawer and said, "Why don't you wear this?" And so I said, "Okay, what the heck?" So I'm wearing my Constellation tie today.
Tom Skilling, Chuck Cardillo may have retired. I'm not sure. Brandon Doherty, did you? And by the way, Chuck Cardillo up in the Catskills, I think he got like 2 or 3 inches of snow between last night and what fell today with, stuff coming, lake effect.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Doherty, and here's a question for you, Joe. Do you like doing your forecast the old ways, back when we started, or now?
Well, when I started, I was just in radio. I didn't get into television until 1988 when I started filling in for you at News 12 Long Island. And remember the old Aurora system?
No, still.
Boy, that's antiquated, isn't it?
I'll say.
So I kind of miss. It's a funny thing. I miss the old days. I missed it when I got started in the business back in the late '70s. We used to have the old teleprinters, the old. It was almost like the hammer against the paper or whatever.
No, yeah, what was it?
But
10 wins.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. We had a one particular unit called Raywark, and Raywark used to give us radar summaries and also special statements from all of the weather services offices in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic area. And the one thing I remember, Joe, about doing that was that when a big storm was coming our way, let's say the storm was going to hit tomorrow morning, and I'd be in the overnight hours, and all of the new stuff, the new FOOS would come out, the LFM would come out, or the NGM or whatever like that, and a lot of times in the background, the Raywark was going right, yeah. But then there was a period like from about 1 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the morning when that Raywark hardly did anything.
Right.
And you knew what was happening. That forecasters up and down the eastern seaboard were looking at the maps, making their forecasts, getting ready to type out there, and sometime around 3 o'clock, all of a sudden, here comes the first of God knows how many special weather statements about the big impending storm. I miss those days. That really was.
You just reminded me of something when I worked at the Weather Service in New York back in 1979, and working a midnight shift and watching Tom Morgan, who would be a great forecaster, and a man who also had so many really funny stories about the old weather service and all of the things that happened over the years. But I could remember that was the early days of a desktop computer platform, and they had a CRT. So just picture just picture a computer screen like we have it now, with the DOS prompt on it, and that's it. And your keyboard,
an old TRS-80 from Radio Shack.
Right.
Yeah.
So he'd be typing on the keyboard, and it was like 1 o'clock or 1:30 in the morning. He'd be typing. He would stop. And I saw him do this multiple times. He would stop mid-sentence, fall asleep for like 15 or 20 minutes, and then he would wake up and he would start exactly. And then if you read what he wrote, it's kind of whatever the last word was before the nap. And the first word after the nap, it was a perfect flow.
Right.
It was just amazing to see.
At the private forecasting service that I was at for a good number of years, when we used to update people like at LaGuardia Airport or Newark Airport or the Mets, believe it or not, we also forecast the weather for the Mets and the Yankees, and the Sanitation Department of New York. We used what was called a Twix machine, which looked like an antiquated typewriter / teletype machine, and we would type the message out, and as we're typing, it would punch holes in like a ticker tape.
Right, and you had to take the tape
and you take the tape
to another machine to run it, and it would read the tape and print.
Read the tape and Those were the days.
Raymond Goldbalt, nice to see you, Raymond. We haven't seen you in months. I hope everything is okay. You might know, I haven't talked to Andy in quite a while.
Gregorio?
Yeah, but he says, because he's up, and Raymond is up in Albany, so he wanted to know, Andy Gregorio, has he retired, because he hadn't seen him on his Weather Eyes YouTube channel in a long time.
Andy retired about a year or two ago, and I think he got into a completely different field, learning in terms of computers, computer programming or whatever. But yeah, he was very good as well. But I'm not exactly sure why he got out, whether he had to get out or whether he was told he had to get out. I don't know. But we worked with Andy. We've known Andy all the way back from the bygone era, from the late '70s. So I can't believe it's been all these years, Joe.
I know.
The years just flew on by.
The days are like eternities. The years just fly by. Wade, yes, of course. I don't mention it every night, but if you notice on the top of the screen over there, okay, is Patreon. So my Patreon weather platform is there, and yes, I can't envision not accepting new members. Of course, there's room for new members if you want to subscribe. It's patreon.com/meteorologist Joe Chaffee. And if you can't remember that, it's on the descriptor to this live stream or the descriptor to this video. And if you can't remember that, go to Patreon and just type meteorologist Joe Chaffee in the search box and it will come up. But I'm still there. And those of you who want a 24/7 or as best as 24/7 weather experience, think about it. It'll get you off the drama of weather groups and social media. Just running through a few more here. Joe, what's the latitude where there is no sunrise?
The latitude where there's no sunrise? Right now?
Yeah. Where is it? It's the Arctic Circle.
With the Arctic
right?
Circle, yeah.
Which is at what?
67-ish?
I was going to guess. I was going to try to remember 67. Peter Anderson, do I ice fish? You know what? I would like to try to ice fish. I actually attempted, but I didn't exactly pick the right day to do it. I was up in New Hampshire back a few years ago on President's Day weekend when it was 15 below zero and a wind chill of -40 with a screaming 30-mile-an-hour wind. So I walked out on Lake Winnipesaukee, which was frozen solid, and people were ice fishing out there. But they already had their little houses built up out there on the ice. I just went out. I was going to try to do something, closer. Within about 10 minutes, I discovered that, because that's the coldest I've ever experienced, ever. A -15 temperature.
Right.
I don't care what anybody says. If it's 0 out and it's the wind chill makes it feel like -15, it doesn't. Okay? It doesn't. You have -15 is a whole lot different than 0 with the wind, and
right.
It really is.
Right.
I mean, the cold, if you're not used to it, the cold goes right down into your chest.
It almost feels like your arm after a few minutes is going to snap off. That's pretty much the story with bitter cold temperatures. The coldest I've ever had is about the same, Joe, about 15 below. I was in Montana in 1979, and I'll tell you, I had a friend of mine who had a blood condition. This person and Dennis Cassia, we know him. He knows him because he's also, the three of us are big fans of the Honeymooners.
Right.
This particular gentleman was amazing. He had 27 vision. He could read the New York Times from a distance of 20 feet.
Oh, God.
Exceedingly. But his blood condition was such that during times when it would get down to, let's say, 75 or 80 degrees, you'd see him wearing a sweater. And in extremely cold weather, forget about it. I was with him in Montana, and I literally had to help him back into the hotel. And he said I was beginning to see gray. It was like
my.
he flopped onto a chair. When it was one time in New York City, it was 103 degrees, and he worked on the Upper West Side around 81st Street, and he said, "This is such a lovely day. I've decided that I'm just going to walk home." You know where he lived? Bensonhurst, Brooklyn.
Oh my! Wow.
103 degrees, and part of the year he spends time in Arizona. So some strange people.
Shall we? It's 7:45 on a Friday night. Shall we call it a night?
I think so. I mean, there's not much more to talk about, is there?
Well, let's see.
This is
just real fast.
I'm
sorry if I didn't get to your. I try to get as many in there, and I always feel bad because I really would love to be able to get every single one. The problem is that I'm almost 61, and I'll read a question. I have to write these things down, Joe, because I'll read something and I'll say okay, because I'll wait for you to be done, and then I'll go on to the next one, and then I either forget what it was or I can't find the person because the chat has moved. And by the way, were you making rabbit ears behind my head earlier?
No.
Okay, because somebody suggested that maybe you should.
Oh no, I wouldn't do that.
I didn't think you would. Would you?
Whoops.
I'm getting in the shot. All right, so
now we're into our final 2 weeks here at Fios One, and now
now final
week number one is gone, And for those of you who remember the game show, What's My Line with John Daly, they used to query a celebrity panel, and every time they got one wrong, John would flip a card. He'd say, okay, 1 down, 9 to go. 2 down, 8 to go. Well, guess what, Joe? After tonight, I'm flipping the card. 5 down and 5 to go.
5 to go.
5 more to go here at FiOS 1.
Well, I'll just leave it with this, because when I came here, when I came here, which was now, I freelanced here for a little over a year before the dayside position, when Jamie Booth was here, and I went, I filled in for her while she was on maternity leave, and then when Jeff DeNoyer left, I got offered the Monday through Friday, let's call it the prime time spot, which was the one thing in my long and I would say odd career.
Checkered career.
Well, it took some odd twists and turns along the way.
Right.
But that was the one thing that really had eluded me. So I was very happy that, I figured that this is my way, at least that I was able to finally get a prime time slot someplace.
Right.
And I did that. So now that it's coming to an end, and it's coming to end not by anything that I did from forces beyond my control, I'm totally happy with it. And of course, my aim personally was, as I started doing stuff on the internet and websites and everything else, and discovering how much I really enjoyed having my own platforms.
Right.
And discovering the fact that I can have my own television show on YouTube and not have someone tell me, you can't do this, you can't do that, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. We do whatever I do whatever I want.
Right.
Some of it works, some of it doesn't. The audience lets you know that if something works and when something doesn't work. But the point is, it's I discovered I discovered the concept of it being mine, and that is something I've not been able to let go of. So in my mind,
you are your own boss.
Right, and it's also let me see stuff that goes on in look, everybody sees you and I think being older, and I think the older folks in the audience might relate to this. Television was always viewed as, I thought, as some sort of magical place. And if you were on it, that was like a huge thing. So it was our aim when we were young. It's like we want to get on TV, we want to be doing that. And I think the one thing we didn't know going in is that it's a job and it's a business. And at the end of the day, the fact that it's a business is really what is front and center. So you quickly learn that sort of fantasy that you had about being on TV was just that. And then you start to deal with the realities. And the realities are not as glamorous as everybody seems to think they are. They really aren't.
No.
In fact, you'd be shocked at how unglamorous it is. So, I've kind of come to terms with that and understanding. I wish I had known that earlier. I wish I had understood that earlier. Right. I think I would have probably made the same decisions that I made, but there also would have been some decisions that I would have made differently. But I wish I had understood that. I think it's taken me almost 40 years to realize it.
And just I've received in the recent days so many people who have been sending me on Facebook through Messenger, are you going back to Channel 12? Are you going back to News 12? People sending me these little tiny emojis with like the prayer thing like this, like they're waiting and hoping that thing. Let me just say straight out that is not going to happen. It's simply not. Not that I don't want it to happen. You have to understand the circumstances. Now, Joe mentioned how he came here. Back in 2016, Cablevision was sold to a company named Altice. Altice then pink-slipped a lot of different people at News 12, some longtime veterans, people like Janine Rose, for example, and our sports editor, Walt Fowler. These are names that if you watch News 12 over many years, you know. They came to me and they said, no, we don't want to lose you. We want to hold on to you, because they want some familiar faces as they filled the gaps with new people, but they still wanted a few familiar faces. They said, we want you to stay with us. And, you say to yourself, okay, a job is a job. But then I found out that I would have to go to their new hub, not in Yonkers, which is where our studio was. They decommissioned the studios in Yonkers. The new hub was in Woodbury, Long Island, which is a 150-mile drive from where I am. It's kind of like what you do on a daily basis. I don't know how you do this. I don't know how you've done this.
65 miles each way?
Yeah, it's incredible. But anyway, for me, I didn't relish it, but I said, okay, I'll do that. I have to do that. It's a job. That's when the people at FiOS 1 came to me and said, would you be interested in coming over to our team? They said, our hub is in Rye Brook, New York, which by coincidence is exactly the same distance that Yonkers was from my home. Well, obviously, in that particular setup, I go to Rye Brook. I told News 12, I'm sorry, I thank you very much, but after 21 plus years, I'm going to, which turned out to be their chief competitor, their number one competitor, which I have now since learned was similar to burning a bridge. And, but, I mean, even after people wrote to News 12 and said, can you bring Joe Rayo back? Nobody at News 12 said, no, we're not bringing him back or whatever like that. So this is the situation I'm in right now. So people who are thinking that maybe I'm going to move back, it's not happening. So don't think that's going to be the situation. It might help them actually. We had earlier in the year at Channel 7, Sam Champion left Channel 7 a while back and went to the Weather Channel. And then when he left the Weather Channel, Channel 7 said, hey, you want to come back to us? And he came back to
Somehow
Channel
I
7.
think that the decimal point on Sam's paycheck may not exactly be in the same spot as the decimal point on yours.
I understand that.
But I'm just saying.
But I'm using it as an analogy
that
when Sam was available, Channel 7 said, please come back to us. When now, it's obvious now I'm available now, but no, News 12 did not say to me, hey, Joe, why don't you come back or whatever like that. It hasn't happened. I don't expect it to happen. And quite frankly, that's the way television is. So now all of you know.
It's, like I said, it's not the glamorous business that everybody thinks it is. It just isn't. All right, so let me just remind everybody for a couple of things. It was coming up on 8 o'clock. So Sunday, you know what? Tomorrow, unless there's a surprise on the weather models, I'll do my weather in 5 in the morning, and I will not do a live stream tomorrow night. Instead, we started this 2 weeks ago, and it seems to work. I've been doing a live stream at 10 a.m. Sunday morning, coffee with Chaffee, and we do our live stream at 10 o'clock in the morning. I have a lot of energy on a Sunday morning, which I usually don't have by the time Sunday night rolls around.
Why don't you do it at 10:30?
Why 10:30?
Because I'm watching.
Are you watching Sunday morning?
I'm watching Sunday morning.
Well, I started at 10 o'clock. I mean, it's not a fixed time. I mean, I've been doing it. I've been starting it at 10. But, I could Skype you in at 10:30 in the middle of it if you're up to it.
No, I can go downstairs and turn on my computer and everything. You know
what? We'll fit. You have my Skype address.
I think so.
So, well, if not, just message me. And if you're ready, if you want to do it, just let me know. I'll make sure it's on the screen so that I hear you, and I have to figure it out on my new computer because there's a few things on there with Windows 10 that are different from my old one. Let's see.
I keep getting messages on my computer that said, remember, no support for Windows 7 after, I think, January 2020.
Just a second here. Okay. I don't know. Timothy, are you on? Timothy Veltman, are you on the chat tonight?
We didn't give a forecast for the toilet bowl on Sunday. That's what some sports.
Oh my God! Right, the Giants, Jets.
Giants versus the Jets.
You do that. I'm going to see if I can find
frustration versus futility head on. The Jet game, Giant game. When is that? 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock? I didn't even
Either way, it's a disaster.
Low 50s, high cloud, sunshine, dry. It'll be a good day for one team to get smeared by the other, or maybe both teams. But it turned out to be like maybe 0-0 or 6-6 or something. One of those low scoring games.
Oh boy, you're right though. It is going to be a futility bowl for sure.
Yes.
All right, folks, we're gonna hang it up here. Thanks for being here on this Friday. We had a lot of fun this week. 4 days in a row, you and I together, and we'll be here next week. So Monday through Friday. I have no days off coming up, so I'll be here every day next week. You'll be here every day next week. We'll finish off our stuff at Fios One News.
And then we have a surprise on Friday with the moderator.
That's what
thing or whatever.
they're telling us. All right. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll
Maybe
see
give
you.
an award or something.
Well, could be.
Oh.
See you Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, okay?
All right, folks. Looking forward to it next week.
Good night, everybody.